below the diaphragm, this is the abdominal aorta. The first cluster here is the celiac trunk. First branch is the common hepatic artery. It branches into the right gastric artery here, and the gastroduodenal artery that goes behind the stomach. This branches into the right gastroepiploic artery or gastroomental artery. You can use either term, that goes around the larger curve of the stomach. The second branch of the celiac trunk is the left gastric artery, which comes around here and meets up with the right gastric artery and actually forms a loop on the inner curve of the stomach. The third branch of the celiac trunk is the splenic artery, comes around to the spleen and branches into the left gastroepiploic artery. So both gastroepiploics come together in a loop just like the gastrics do. So that's the celiac trunk. Beneath it, on the abdominal aorta, is the start of the superior mesenteric artery, which is this. This gives the middle colic artery, the right colic artery, and the ileocolic artery. So that's the MRI I talked about. Then you have the renal arteries going to the kidneys next to that. And then below it, the inferior mesenteric artery, which branches into the left colic artery and the superior rectal artery. So these are the main parts of the abdominal aorta that you need to know. If you continue down, the aorta branches into the right and left common iliac arteries, and then the internal and external iliac arteries on either side. The external iliac artery goes into the leg and branches into the deep femoral and femoral arteries. The femoral artery comes down, goes behind the knee, and then is called the popliteal artery, because this is the popliteal area, or the back of the knee. Then that branches into the anterior tibial artery, the posterior tibial artery, and the fibular artery in the middle. On this one, this is the posterior tibial and the fibular. And the anterior tibial artery is here. You can only see it a little bit because the bone is in the way. If you go up here, this is the brachiocephalic trunk. The right common carotid artery goes up, splits into the external and internal carotid arteries, which then you would go to the skull model for, and the subclavian, from which you get the thyrocervical trunk, and the vertebral artery, which goes up into the skull just like the carotids. Continue along. It also gives rise to the internal thoracic artery. There's one on either side, and all of these intercostal arteries come off of it. The last one coming off of the subclavian is the subscapular artery, which is this one. Once the subclavian gives rise to that, the name changes, and this is now the axillary artery. Once you get into the body of the arm, this is all the brachial artery. Brachial artery comes down, splits into the radial and ulnar arteries, and then the palmar arches, and there are also plantar arches in the foot.